CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 65, I Love the Part of Me That... And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello, and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, and I am the host. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Croft. Thank you very much for joining us on episode 65 of the Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel.
As always, we're so grateful for your support and that you listen and that, again, you share it with your friends. It means the world to us that this is touching your soul and enriching your life. And we are about, real conversations about our own authentic spiritual journey. And I kind of like last show that Dave and I had a disagreement. It wasn't a disagreement really, but we had a difference of opinion.
Different perspective.
And I thought that was good because as our listeners, we want you to know, you don't have to agree with every word we say. As a matter of fact, we want what we say to spark something in you. And so we know how the soul works, that if you're having a reaction to something we say, it very well could mean there's something new for you to do or a new direction. So we just honor that.
Well, and the whole, from different perspectives here on the, we say that every single episode. So.
Yeah, I know. So every now and then we need a different one.
Yes.
So often, Dave and I just want to, sing Kumbaya. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. But so it's good to have a difference at times. So today I'm basing the whole show on one phrase. I love the part of me that. So this phrase is one I learned years ago, and I definitely want to do a shout out to the book and to the mentor that made me aware of it several years ago. And the book is called Learning to Love Yourself, and it is by Gay Hendricks. And it was written, I want to say it was written like in maybe it was early 80s, when there was a lot of, work being done on oneself. And it looked like, when I looked it up, Learning to Love Yourself, it looked like that there was maybe a new edition out, because a few years ago I tried to get a copy and I wasn't able to get a copy. So it looked like there may be a new copy out. But there's an amazing story in there. There's many amazing stories in there, but the takeaway from the book for me that I continue to come back to is using that affirmation. I love the part of me that. Well, it's not really an affirmation. It brings me into awareness, and especially after our last show, Wake Up, Wake Up, Wake Up. Once you wake up, what do? Well, this is why the show is following the Wake Up, Wake Up, Wake Up show. I described in the last show that when we begin to wake up, sometimes we have feelings about that. Sometimes they're feelings of shame. Sometimes they're feeling of shock, disillusionment. The denial is broken. So we're waking up.
Yeah, the realization that, oh my gosh, that was me.
Mm-hmm. Right? Or this is happening. Yeah, I was just working with somebody not too long ago who's just really in shock about a certain situation. And the more she learns, though, she sees, the goodness for her soul. But boy, it's taken a while. And that's normal when you're coming to consciousness on a new idea, and therefore a new aspect of your soul and journey. And so anyway, so when we're making these big shifts in consciousness, what happens is the ego starts to, a lot of us call it the inner committee. The ego has a field day with telling you what the problem is, how you're doing it wrong, why didn't you get it before now, why are you still doing this, you ought to be ashamed. So all of us have this committee go off in our minds. So rather than staying with that committee, rather than listening to that committee, rather than allowing that committee to move us backwards on the journey instead of forwards, we want to bring this thought into consciousness. I love the part of me that. So, and then you fill in the blank. You fill in the blank. So as you fill in the blank, that's going to help you. So I had a friend that said, it was one of our members in a class. It was an open forum, so I can repeat this. But what if I don't love myself in the midst of what's happening? Then you say, I love the part of me that doesn't want to love myself right now. So you can't get out of it. This is radical self-love. Really, if I had another title for the show, would be radical self-love. But I wanted to use that phrase. I love the part of me that. We want to come back to self-love because love of self is our divine right. It doesn't mean we don't love others. As a matter of fact, it means I'm going to love better because my loving is going to come from a place of groundedness in myself. My loving is going to come from true love rather than giving to get, which is how a lot of us learn to love. So I love the part of me that is a phrase when you fill in the blank that will bring you back to yourself. So if you feel ashamed, let's say you're waking up to a new idea. Let's say your shame gets touched and you're like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. Or why did I not see this sooner? And I hear this all the time from people. We always want to shame ourselves when we don't get the spiritual lesson early enough. I've done it myself many times. How we would deal with that with using this phrase, I love the part of me that feels ashamed. And so we don't just say it and move on, but it's like we let it resonate. I love the part of me that feels ashamed. And all of a sudden, you start to feel this. For me, it takes about 15 seconds to shift. And all of a sudden, instead of feeling bad, it's like, oh, wait. I don't have to feel ashamed. I can love the part of me that feels ashamed. And then automatically the shame starts to lift. I don't have to pretend I'm not ashamed. I don't have to push through the shame. I don't have to run from the shame. I don't have to all of a sudden defend because I'm ashamed. All of those strategies. Now, this type of phrase really requires some emotional intelligence. So maybe I should have started there. I love the part of me that thinks I should have done it differently. I love the part of me that thinks I should have done it differently. We talk about shows from time to time, and we did a series on this, starting your day out with a morning practice. Now, Dave, I know you start with a morning practice.
Yeah, I get up and I go for almost a 2-mile walk.
Yeah.
It's 1.84 miles. It's just the way. It's just the path of my neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and a little bit of exercise and make some coffee. And whether I have a session like this or going off to Full Sail or whatever, it's a little burst of creativity of writing, composing, and that kind of thing before.
Right. I don't know if you do emotional work during that time or journaling.
I don't.
But in my practice, I do. And so my morning practice is I do my walk, as well. And then after that, my journaling pieces are journaling my feeling reality. I do this on a daily basis, and it's interesting. If I don't, I really struggle throughout the day. This is just me. Honestly, this is just me. You may not be this way. I really need a check-in with myself.
Absolutely. And even though I don't do, any heavy emotional lifting in the morning, I know, like this week, for example, I didn't walk the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday of the week. And just because of scheduling, and I had a trip and all this other stuff. And I noticed it big time.
Oh, yeah.
And my whole morning felt just out of sync because I've talked about this, I'm such a creature of habit and I definitely like, routines. And so getting out of that routine and everything just felt, I don't know, just not unmoored, but everything just felt not on solid footing.
Yeah, not as grounded, your practice. Well, the reason I think it's important to have some kind of practice, whether, as I've said, whether it's morning or evening, some practice that really grounds you is so when these feelings do come up, again, guilt, shame, regret, anger, a feeling of helplessness, this phrase I'm giving you, I love the part of me that feels helpless. I love the part of me that feels scared. I love the part of me that is angry. So it shifts us from being almost, we become possessed by an emotion where we think that's who we are. And then we react from this emotional nature. But if we're saying, I love the part of me that, first of all, we're acknowledging it's just an aspect of us. Suddenly, you're already getting objective. I love the part of me that. It's also a way to get proper perspective on whatever emotion we're feeling. It also helps us know we are not that feeling. It's just a part of me that is feeling that at the moment, right? So and then it turns it into, rather than a problem, an opportunity to love myself in a greater way. So that is super important to me. I love the part of me that. And I'll be honest, just the other day, I said something to my mentor, and she said, I love the part of me that. I wanted her to fix it.
And so she just pointed it back to you.
And she just said, I love the part of me that. And I said, feels, whatever. Well, I don't remember right now what the feeling was, because at the time it was big. So our feelings, man, they get all this attention, and it is important to pay attention to them. It is important to acknowledge them, but it's also very, very important not to live as if feelings are the only thing and the only aspect of you. So I love the part of me that is a very, very helpful phrase. In the morning, as I'm doing my check-in, I'm saying, first of all, my first check-in is, how do I feel? And I write, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel whatever. Sometimes I write long sentences about it, but usually if I'm going to do a long journaling, I have a whole separate, this is the leather-bound, super deep work. My feeling check-in in the morning every day is more like, where am I emotionally and what do I need to deal with? And it also, as I do this quick check-in, because it takes about, only about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, as I'm doing it with a song. So as I'm doing this work and I'm writing it down, it's a clue for me. It's a clue for me for how well did I release the day before. It's a clue for me, where am I starting my day? So if I've got a lot going on emotionally, I think, what self-care do I need to be doing? If I'm angry, if I'm frustrated, if I'm sad, if I'm grieving, right? Because I've definitely had some of all of those in the last week. I mean, those are just all normal emotions. We have those, all of us have those off and on throughout almost any given day. But for some reason, those are sticking out of my mind right now. So if I see those, I'm going to think, okay, wow, that's a lot. How do I want to deal with that today? Do I need to go take care of myself? Do I need acupuncture? Do I need a therapeutic session? Do I need to do an extra long walk to move some of this energy? What do I need? And so pausing long enough to see what my feelings are really help give me perspective on where I am. And it helps me release any of the feeling nature. It's like the page holds the feelings for me, so they're not churning up inside me all the time. I have a very, dynamic feeling nature. I'm in touch with my feeling nature. I always have been. As an adult, once I started really doing feeling check-ins, it's like, oh my gosh, my feelings have so much to tell me, So the first part of the day, where I'm getting that is super crucial for a healthy day. And then later, if something comes up and I have this phrase, I love the part of me that feels whatever, boy, I'm really helping myself. I'm really supporting my soul, so that I get to have my feeling, I get to have my vulnerability, but rather than feeling bad about having a feeling, I can see it as a new way to love myself. Like these feelings, if I'm consistently mad or angry or frustrated, something needs to change. But if I stay mad or angry or frustrated, change is not going to happen. But if I can love the part of me that feels sad or angry or frustrated, then boy, it's like, as I'm saying this now, I'm picturing like this door in blackness, and as the door begins to open, light shines through, right? So this phrase for me, it's so simple, it's so short. I love the part of me that. I love the part of me that feels angry. And then rather than being angry and then stuck in the anger, you get some space. And I think as you're listening, you can feel the shift even when I say it. Can you feel it?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's really important because once you kind of tap into the, I don't need to be holding on to things like anger, and once if you don't acknowledge it, and if you don't say, I love the part of me that's angry right now, then what can happen, at least it happens for me, is I start getting angry about not letting go of the anger.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I should be letting this go. Why am I not? And it creates this feedback loop.
You gotta love the ego, man. The ego loves to beat you up, and when you're coming to consciousness, which is again why this show followed the first one. Remember when we were planning these shows, I said, well, first we have to do wake up, wake up, wake up.
Right.
Then the next show has to be I love the part of me that, because as you really begin to wake up, boy, the ego has a field day because the ego, hear me, the ego fears annihilation.
Right.
The ego says, no, you need me. No. Remember, you're supposed to feel bad. No, you don't know how to do this. You've never done this before. We don't know how to do this. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. I mean, the committee, and you're going, what? This is how my mind works.
Yeah.
We love to call it the monkey mind for a
Right.
reason.
Yeah, for me, we've talked about, eating and weight and all of that stuff here
Yeah,
on the
right,
show.
right,
And
right.
it's just like, if you're not trying to lose weight,
Yeah.
then you can kind of just be literally fat and happy. And this is coming from a fat and happy guy, right? You can just be fat and happy and it's all good. Like the way like a chubby baby has
Oh, yeah.
no consciousness about, maybe you should, whatever. But then once you become aware of it, that's when like shame and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when that really starts to eat at you, no pun intended, but that's when it really starts to kind of prey
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, I guess I'll get to the bottom of this pint of Ben and Jerry's, and been there, absolutely been there myself. So I'm not saying anything that I haven't been through on my own. So that can be really tough. And so once you're awake, and that's what we talked about Anne Emerson's book, Sleep Essence.
Yeah.
And sleeping souls they're just unaware.
Totally unaware, yeah.
But the seekers, they're the ones who do the battle. They're the ones
Yeah.
going against it, trying to tamp down ego. That's where the battle lines are, is in the seeking process.
Yeah.
And then once you're awakened, that doesn't mean everything's perfect. It just means that you can rise above it. I don't know if your consciousness kind of floats.
You kind of transmute and transcend it, I think.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And the word mute is actually a good word when we're talking about the ego, because everybody has an ego. You're always going to have one, friends, until you're realized, and you might have a lifetime or two to go on that, like I do. I used to always say, I'm not coming back. I'm going to heal as much as I can. And I still say I'm going to heal as much as I can, this lifetime. But we have an ego. So we don't need to feel bad when we have egoic things. What we do is we mute those to a degree by letting the soul and spirit of us come forward. So we hear those voices, we hear those, what we often call lower desires or lower nature desires. And we want the higher self of us to come forward. So this phrase is a call back to center. I love the part of me that. We are called to self-love. The scriptures say, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. This implies to me that you first have to love yourself.
Love yourself, that's right.
And it's a thing I've that's been transformative for me. I've had struggles in. I think, this is probably in every family. I was going to say in big families. So in my family in particular, we there are a lot of wonderful things about my growing up and my siblings, for sure. There were a lot of difficult things as well. But there's something about, in a big family, it seemed to me that when there's so many people in one household, the individual needs are not always number one. We didn't necessarily learn love yourself. What we learned was serve others. Well, that's a wonderful lesson. And I think so many of my siblings are great servers of others. They take care, they support, they nurture. But if the care and nurturing of others, again, doesn't come from self-love, then we've replaced our self-love with doing to get. So
it becomes transactional.
It becomes transactional, exactly. And so I think it's really important to move into more self-love. And I think it is a higher state of awareness. I have a friend that I would say is the best example of someone who loves themselves, and it also means a lot to me that it's a man. I don't know why, because I just being in his presence, I slow down, I think about what my needs are, and I listen to the inner voice a little more. So I love that I have somebody that wakes me up to that aspect of myself. It's like, so what do I need?
It's interesting that you mentioned the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself. And,
Yeah.
we look at the state of the world and the state of the country, and we say, why aren't you loving your neighbor as yourself, whether it's immigration or,
Right.
civil rights or whatever.
Yeah.
And I submit that they are loving their neighbor as they love themselves.
Oh, I would say that's
Because
true.
they don't love themselves. Some of them probably hate themselves.
Oh, very true. Very, very true. I mean,
Some of us, I felt really us versus them. I didn't mean it that way.
well, I think what you're saying is individuals
Mm-hmm.
who act in opposition to this idea clearly don't love themselves, and I think that's true. And I think we're all waking up to that fact. We can only love others as we love ourselves. I think that's why there are so many teachings like that in the scriptures. What are they called in Buddhism? A koan? Those type of kind of eternal questions that really can't be answered, but then can by this practical application of a really simple teaching, which is love your neighbor as yourself is actually true. You can only love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if your supposition, your thesis,
Right.
your idea is, if I'm not loving my neighbor, I don't love myself. And I would say that's absolutely true. Because what is always happening is the projection of how we feel about ourselves onto others.
That's right.
That's just how it is. And so that can be a really difficult, the old phrase, that's a difficult pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Because we want to say, but no, it's them.
And that doesn't even mean like people are unhappy.
Right.
I mean, there are probably people who are happy or satisfied in life and everything, but that deep down, you peel back the layers and there's some self-loathing or some self-hate or, yeah.
I love the part of me that wants to be right. Yeah. I love the part of me that wants to be right. So with that phrase and that idea, we'll take a break and we'll be back in just a few moments.
We'll return to the program in just a few minutes, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to thank Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. And finally, we'd like to extend our special thanks to Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome back. We are working with this idea today. I love the part of me that. I love the part of me that. And it could be, the rest of that phrase is, I love the part of me that feels, one of the things I work with, and I just slipped up the other day. It was really interesting. When I'm doing my feeling check-in the mornings, the words I use and the words I write down are I feel, and then kind of, fill in the blank. I feel love. I feel mad. I feel
Kind
whatever.
of the feeling check-in. Yeah.
Feeling check-in. But the other day, I had written a bunch of feeling check-in, and I realized, am I being airy-fairy with this and not getting real with my feelings? and because I tend to be positive and, like, oh, fine, I might feel this, but everything's going to work out. So I was like, wait a minute. It's like my soul did not let me get up, and then so I started to move on to what are my 3 tasks for the day. I always ask the universe. And before I could write that down, it was like, finish your other process. So then I wrote, I am angry. And it was like, oh no, I am not angry. I feel angry. Mm-hmm. So I want to pause to talk about this. This was a Unity teaching, one of the initial Unity teachings I got. And at first I'll be honest, I thought it was a little silly. I thought this is a semantics issue. Mm-hmm. And what I learned in the class, the teacher was saying, don't use your I am for anything but, positive or spiritual. Don't claim your I am as a negativity. So don't say, I am angry. You say, I feel angry. Because if you do that, it's like you're claiming it as your nature. And so, in the scriptures, at the burning bush, Moses says, who do I say sent me? And God says, I am that I am, which rightly translated means I am beingness itself, basically. So the word I am, we want to use for bringing in our spiritual nature. Now, being new to Unity, and I tend to be, years ago, this was like 20-some years ago when I was new to Unity, but I tend to be, I don't know if cynical is the right word, but I'm not easily like hooked in with a new spiritual belief. I've had a lot of experience in church. I've had a lot of experience with spiritual teachers. I've seen major fakeolas, and I've seen the real deal. And like in the native world, I always call them instant Indians. I've seen instant Indians, that just bought a feather yesterday and are doing workshops today. So where was I going with that? That's hilarious.
Yeah, I learned that it was one of the things that made me. It's like if I had a foundation in biblical evangelical Christianity, one of the ones that really started to kind of pull that, or I don't know, just kind of crack at that foundation. And it was actually a teaching from a pastor who said, I am not a sinner. That's what he said. And that was like the start of his sermon. I am not a sinner. And you could, hear everybody, oh, what? And he talked about identifying,
Yeah. So don't use your I am for the negative.
Yeah, and
exactly.
So I am not a sinner. I have sinned, again, the theology of sinning and all that stuff.
So, well, that's fine. We've all sinned, the scriptures say. We've all made mistakes, in other words.
But that was a teaching that made me really go, oh, hey, maybe all of this stuff that, I was kind of indoctrinated in at a young age, maybe there's a lot more to it than just kind of rote blind obedience.
Yeah, and I think the idea is what I started to say earlier with, don't own it. That when I first heard in Unity, I was skeptical, I guess is the right word, because I'd never heard of Unity, and I was just learning about the power of our thoughts and our words. And so, a friend of mine said it this way, who's a Unity minister, Greg Barrett. He said, "Thoughts are formative, prayers are creative." Thoughts are formative, prayers are creative. What that meant to me was this I am. If I'm saying the I am, it's a prayer, whether I think it's a prayer or not. I am, and then following it with a word is a prayer. So if I say I am tired, I am sick and tired, I am this, I am that, the universe says, you're right. And especially if you speak it out loud, boy, you've sent it out in the universe. So what I noticed in my writing, all the happy feelings I was fine with, and then when it got to the difficult feelings, because I was really in my emotions, I started claiming it. I am angry, and I said, I gotta pull back on that. I was like, oh no, okay, so I love the part of me that wants to just be nothing but anger right now. I feel angry. I feel angry. And if I can pause and pull back from that, it's like, oh yeah. So I want to allow the feeling, I allow it to come up and be moved out of my body. I don't want to pretend it isn't there, but I don't want to own it like a prayer. I am angry. I am angry. I mean, just me saying that, the energy, I can feel it in my body. It's not what I want. I can feel that it's not what I want.
It's fun. In the German language, they make a distinction like this.
Oh.
For example, if you say, mir ist heiß, right? Or mir ist heiß, I think. It basically says I'm hot. Like,
Right.
I'm hot. It's hot. But because being hot isn't like a state of being, it's something that is affecting you, but it's not a state of being. Mm-hmm. But if you say, and my apologies to any German speakers out there, ich bin heiß, that means I am randy, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Because that is a state of being, right? It's basically like, yeah, I'm hot. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, right.
And so the German language makes that distinction. And so, I learned that the hard way when I was like, ich bin heiß. And the Germans started laughing because it basically, means that you're feeling randy right now. But they're like, no, mir ist heiß it's happening to you. It is not who you are. And so there are a lot of words like that and a lot of distinctions like that in the German language.
Yeah, that's interesting because really in English, we use I feel and I am pretty interchangeably. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that's so valuable to me about Unity and the Fillmore's teaching is how it is becoming conscious of our thoughts and our words and what we want to be projecting out into the universe. And so I want to encourage you, if you hear yourself or notice yourself really owning any emotion as your nature, you might want to pull back from that. I can just think of a slew of things we wouldn't want to say. So I don't even want to put them out there. I think we want to just pull back from that and say, I feel, realizing that feelings are windows into the soul. Feelings are showing us areas that we need to heal. Feelings are showing us where we're hitting something uncomfortable. Feelings are a come and go. They're not our true nature. And so when we say, I love the part of me that, we are really honoring the feeling, but without letting the feeling completely run our show. Everything I see, and I say this often on Sundays because I want to wake people up to this fact that everything we're seeing in our culture, pretty much everything on the news these days that I see or that I read is so personality-based. He did this, he's stronger than this, he's louder than this, he's more than that, and it just gets louder and louder and louder. So we don't want to be in that fray. We want to pull back from that. Yes, we have emotion. Yes, we honor that emotion, but we don't want that emotion running our lives, right? I mean, we have a feeling. And I'll tell you, being a minister has taught me that. Yeah.
The I love myself that.
I love the part of me that.
I love the part of me that. I'm sorry. Is it always intended to try to turn around something in your mind, or is it more like an affirmation? Like,
it's not necessarily to turn it around. It's just to love all of yourself.
Okay.
We make up that there's parts of ourselves that are not lovable. And like if we feel like we've done something wrong or we feel shame, certainly if we feel anger, especially for spiritual people, we tend to not like to feel anger or even rage, and we all feel those things. So it's to know that even in that, you are lovable.
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking is sometimes, like, I hate making mistakes, like everybody, but I really hate making mistakes, especially if it's musical or like technical or like forgetting to hit record or something like that here. This is not autobiographical, by the way, but that kind of thing. And so what the ego part of me says, man, I'm stupid.
Yeah.
But I don't want to necessarily say I like the part of me.
No, not I like. I love the part of me.
I love the part of me that feels stupid. No, that's I don't even want that. I almost want to I love the part of me that is always pushing myself. And sometimes though, that means something might slip through the cracks, but I love the part of me that's always trying to try new things and reach for highest excellence.
All right, so
Am I doing that wrong?
Well, I would say keep it simple. So tell me why, if you feel like, if you really want to go with this on the air, what would prevent you from saying, I love the part of me that feels stupid?
Because it feels like I'm giving, it feels like I'm trying to think of the word. It feels like I'm giving feeling stupid
Like too
much. It's like,
Yeah.
that's, I'm not saying I never feel stupid, right? But I feel like I'm giving it too much weight, too much ownership. I'm giving it too much importance.
Okay, all right. So let me just lift up a possible other perspective.
All right.
If though we don't name it, are we giving it enough in the sense that because if we're not naming that particular feeling, are we then just going to continue the pattern? You know, right? So if we're saying, I love the part of me that tries hard, well, that's easy to love. The part of you that tries hard. The part that's hard to love is the part that feels stupid.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's not wrong. Like, I love the part of me that wants to figure out how to say this the right way.
Right. Okay. Another example.
Yeah.
Since we're being really authentic, like,
Well, that's what it is. Authentic
Like-
spiritual journey.
like I hate the part of me that overeats. Right. I hate the part of me that for whatever psychotic reason feels like there's never enough, and so I have to binge or whatever. So I actually hate the part of me, and so to say I love the part of me that overeats.
You don't say that, so let me help you.
Okay. All right.
I love the part of me that hates when I overeat.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to get into some ones. I love the part of me that hates when I overeat.
Gotcha.
Right. So, yeah, my one for me might be, I'm not trying to keep you in the hot seat.
No.
Yeah, one for me is, I love the part of me. I'm trying to think of one that I want to do one that's very real. I'm trying to think of the right wording. I love the part of me that feels wrong. Yeah. So we just sit with that. Yeah. I love the part of me that feels like I did it wrong. I love the part of me that feels small. Yeah. I love the part of me that feels unsuccessful. So as I'm saying these statements, though, I don't feel bad. I feel vulnerable. But I don't feel like by saying them, then this is just my experience, I don't feel like by saying them, I'm less of a person. I feel like by saying them, I'm freeing myself from the feeling. Because I'm saying I'm lovable even in that. Right? So I love the part of me that feels wrong. You notice I didn't say it first, do it wrong. Like there's just I've said it on the show before. This is an Achilles heel for me. To get really clear and really honest, it doesn't matter. 1,000 people could tell me I did it right or that I'm right. I love the part of me that feels wrong. So there's something in my history, maybe it's past life, maybe it's childhood, maybe it's both, that comes up for me. So when I hit that in my consciousness, or I think I'm going to be judged by something I'm doing, I really have to work with that. So, I don't feel wrong all the time like I used to. I don't feel like me being on planet Earth is wrong, but I have felt that at certain times. So this has been a lifelong journey with this soul struggle. And it's all personality stuff. It's the way my ego tries to keep me small. It's the way my ego tries to hijack my soul moving forward. So when I am really owning my power as an individual, as a podcast presenter, as a minister, there's this little voice that wants to come in and hijack it and say, you did it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Right. So I have to say, oh, and I have to pause and say, oh, I love the part of me that feels wrong or that feels bad, And then it's like, oh, I'm not wrong or bad. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
But until I can admit that, I can't get there. I can't affirm my way out of it. I can't talk my way out of it. I can't rationalize my way out of it.
Because you're fundamentally like kind of in a sense of denial about it, or?
Yeah, because I won't own that it's there. So when you say the phrase, I love the part of me that, you're saying, all right, there it is. I'm going to love myself in this. And it's the opposite of what you think was happening. You're not really owning it. What you're doing is you're saying, that's where I am, and I'm going to love myself in that because that's me. Hating part of myself is not going to help. That's just going to bring more negativity and more wrong, right? Or more of negativity, right? But if I can love myself even when I have that feeling, because again, I am more than my feelings, right? So if I'm in the middle of that feeling wrong or whatever it might be, if I'm in the middle of feeling that, my soul is still here shining. My soul is saying, I'm right here. Hey, over here, man. Lift up. Turn on your tunes. Get yourself like my jams, right? Get yourself back on track with this stuff. So if I say, oh, shoot, there it is again, gee, I love the part of me that feels wrong. And then I go, yeah, that's good. I do love that part of me, and I'm good. So it's just like it takes the charge out of it somehow.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was.
I'm glad we went deeper into it because that was good.
I think part of it was the way I was thinking about it is, that whole kind of, that's just the way he is. Somebody's kind of a jerk. It's like, well, I love the part of me that that says it like it is without regard to anybody's empathic feelings. You know what I mean? That's really kind of a character flaw, maybe. You know what I'm talking about. And so people. Maybe you do. I don't want to assume you do, but the way I was thinking of it is, if this is something that needs work, I understand where we're coming from. This is where I was, is by saying I love the part of me that, it makes it feel like you're excusing that, or you're making that okay, and saying, I don't need to work on that necessarily, or if this is just a part of me, and take it or leave it.
So, right, and the opposite is true. When we are saying, I love the part of me that, we're acknowledging it's still there. And by acknowledging it's there, the soul has this amazing intelligence. The soul will guide you, direct you how to work on it. So you're actually doing the opposite of working on it if you don't name it. Right? So it's the ego always tries to figure this out. From the linear mind, you're not, it looks like, oh, wow, what? But if I say that, am I owning it? Or am I saying, well, I'm just fine? It's not from the ego state. It's from unconditional love, which is spirit and soul. So I love the part of me that means I make room for this area of my life that I'm needing to heal, and I see it. And as I love myself, that's the beginning of the healing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Loving yourself, even in that, is the beginning of the healing. And it takes a while to get to that. This phrase is much more powerful than you might imagine. And you notice when we both said it, when we were saying it, our voices were deeper, we were calmer, we were gentler, we were feeling into, I love the part of me that. So there was an energy shift as we did it. So the idea is, you do this phrase, it shifts your energy totally without you trying to think it to death, without you trying to make it shift, because it opens your heart chakra. I love the part of me that opens you at the level of the heart, and then you can move forward, and then again, see what work there is to do. Because until you name it and see it, you're never going to heal it. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And that book, if you've never read, Learning to Love Yourself, it's a powerful book. I'm probably going to read it again.
Yeah, and we'll have links to that in the show notes.
Yeah. I come back to that over time. About every like 3 to 5 years, I will read it again. I've read it several times, and it's been a wonderful aspect of my journey. And my mentor has worked with me extensively on that. And even with a member one time, he came in for a counseling session, and everything he said, I said, I want you to turn it around into this statement. That's all we did for an hour. And we were both so blissed out by the end. The room was full of love. So friends, try this in your time of prayer. Try this. This one you can do as you go down the road. Yep. I love the part of me that just got angry at that driver. I love the part of me that wants to rush everything, and see how you can shift that. But try to breathe into it. Try to be, breathe into it, allow it to expand in you, and see if you can feel that heart chakra opening up. Remember too, as from the last show, we talked about the signs Spirit's giving. So you will know when you need to use this phrase, because whatever's coming up in your life. So remember, the universe supports you on the journey. We do too. That's why we're bringing you these shows. And know that you are lovable just as you are. And that as you learn to love these parts of yourself, you heal, grow, and transform. So that's the idea. So thank you again for joining us today, dear friend. We love when you share the program on social media, when you share it with friends and those you love. And we appreciate you joining us. Blessings on the journey.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, J.J. Hamilton, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, and Susanna Garcia. If you would like to support the channel as a patron on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. And if you enjoy this podcast, help spread the word by sharing it with your friends and leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, or the platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.